Hello, this is Alexander Sebastian coming to you again on Parents as Partners. And as you can see, it's a night out here. And it's fitting because the topic that we're going to discuss this evening is rather a dark topic, and that's parents and administration of corporal punishment. There are three areas in which spouses often have conflicting points of view. One is their families. Not much you can do about that. The second one is money. And the third one is how you discipline the children. There's often varying points of view on how it should be done. And if you're an expat family, the cultures that each spouse was raised in can greatly affect how they see the administration of corporal punishment and the relationship between children and parents. So this is a very touchy topic, and it's one that is especially difficult when the child is young and doesn't understand language, and it's the time that often the spouses are the most attached to the child and see the child as fragile, and the parents are most concerned about having a negative impact on the child. And so it's a really touchy time, especially for first-time parents. You know that in generations before ours, the common philosophy was spare the rod and spoil the child. Well, there's been a growing trend that corporal punishment is no longer acceptable, and we should reason with the child. But for those of you who have children and have raised them, you know that it's a little bit difficult to reason with a toddler, and sometimes they can be very, very stubborn. I can tell you that from my own experience with my kids. With my young son Peter, there was no way you could reason with him. When he got something in his mind and he would not say sorry, or he would not do what he was supposed to be doing, or he would treat his sister badly, and there's no way that we could see any remorse in him or any way to get him not to act that way, except threaten him with corporal punishment. And that's the number one utility of corporal punishment, is to instill fear in the child that if you do this, this is the consequence that's going to happen. And it's very clear, it's easy to understand. We use it with our pets. So how efficient it is, we'll look at that later. The second purpose of the use of corporal punishment is to punish. They've done something wrong, and there has to be a consequence. What's the result of this physical punishment? Well, first of all, of course, the child suffers physically, and emotionally he may feel very humiliated, and if he doesn't think it's fair, he will have a grudge. So the first one is on the child himself. The second consequence is on the parent who administers the corporal punishment. And we've all heard the statement, this is going to hurt me a lot more than it's going to hurt you, and it often does. It hurts the parents. It's not pleasant, and you don't feel clean afterwards. Huh? And the third one is the consequence between the spouses. The spouse that's in the living room and hearing the child screaming in the bedroom, and hearing the whacks from the spanking, she's not going to feel good about that, or he's not going to feel good about that in the living room. And in spite of what they say, they're going to hold a grudge against the parent for hurting their child. So it's certainly not a win-win situation. And corporal punishment is something to invoke only in dire circumstances. Huh? You know that the United Nations passed an act for the children's right, and it clearly states in there that children should not receive undue punishment, either physical or mental punishment. And this feeling that's growing around the world, that children have rights and these need to be respected, and the time that a parent has absolute authority over their children is long gone, and parents need to be aware of this, and because children are aware of this, and it's not unusual for children to seek a recourse in the police and saying that the parent has been beating me and or treating me in a way that is undue punishment, and the police and teachers are obliged to intervene, and as are neighbors, if they believe that there's excessive use of force or punishment, mental or physical. So, what can you do in your family to reduce the amount of physical punishment, or if it is administered, it's administered in a fair way and the child understands? Well, what you need to do, and we're talking about with children who can actually communicate and understand and can speak, need to hold a family council, not at the dinner table, but specifically for this purpose of setting up the guidelines of what's acceptable behavior and what is an acceptable consequence, and all parties need to agree. So often the children are, I found, both in my classroom and with my children, they are stricter than I would be. So get your family together and talk about the need to set up some kind of framework, a written framework on what you're going to do about discipline in the household. Both parents must be there, as well as the children, and have an open and free discussion. Of course, no criticism at this time. Just come out with your ideas, and hopefully you can reach a consensus that for the family to run smoothly, there has to be certain rules, and when those rules are transgressed, then there has to be consequences, and the consequences have to be in measure with the transgression. So I don't think that's unreasonable, and if this gives the children protection, also they know that they can't be punished arbitrarily, and they can hold the parents responsible. Listen, I didn't do this. This wasn't in the agreement, and if you want to put it in the agreement, we can talk about it. But I haven't transgressed our code. Of course, you're not going to put everything in the code, but try to keep the general broad lines in there, huh? And it will evolve as the child gets older and new risks come. So it's a living document, huh? Okay, so in those guidelines that you set up, there are other elements besides just corporal punishment. Of course, there can be grounding, there can be withdrawal of privileges, there can be withdrawal of use of the phone or computer time, withdrawal of allowance. So corporal punishment should only be reserved for the most severe of cases, and especially when someone's health or well-being is in danger, or that of the family. Yeah? So, but parents have a wide array of different measures they can use to have things going smoothly in the home. I think we can all agree that the worst case scenario is when physical punishment is used with anger. It happens times that the child transgresses, and the parent may be justified in using physical punishment, but it shouldn't be done when other people are around. It shouldn't be done, especially when the parent is angry. It should be done with a cool head and with the right intention of the parent, that you're trying to help that child learn better behavior and safe behavior for himself, huh? And never it should be administered out of anger. And I can say that because I have transgressed this number one rule myself once or twice. I don't think more than that, but I still regret that, and it happened a long time ago, huh? So believe me, if you don't want to have regrets, try to keep that in mind, and never act out of anger, and you will not get your child's respect that way, huh? So, or your spouse's. So try to keep a cool head, put it off, and of course never use any instruments. So my mother used a long brush, and when she spanked me, long-handled brunch, and my father occasionally used his belt, but and I don't begrudge them that, but those are to be avoided, definitely. And if you are going to use corporal punishment, use your open hand on the bottom. Don't try to hurt the fear is the number one element, I think, that impacts the child, and they're not happy if they make you unhappy. So you don't have to go overboard. Always make a judgment on the gentler side than on the hard side. Right. Okay, this is a touchy subject. I hope you don't have the occasion to invoke this corporal punishment very often. If you do, and you do it with a cool head, and you think it's justified, and don't feel guilty afterwards, it's water under the bridge, it's done. Hopefully it was efficient, and don't let your spouse try to make you feel bad, especially if you did it with a cool head and the child knew this would be the consequence of their actions. Okay, well, it's a lot easier said than done, and when you find yourself in that situation, I wish you a cool head and proper judgment. Okay, this is Alexander Sebastian signing off for Parents as Partners, and on this journey together of raising our children with all the love we can, and still get the job done. Okay. See you next time then. Thank you, and subscribe. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.